Today we're going to talk about the Sport Cup 2R versus the PS4S as it pertains to the Z06 and the Z07 cars. Obviously my car is a Z07 package. It's got about 3,100 miles on it. About 2,500 of those 3,100 miles have been with the Sport Cup 2Rs. It didn't matter if it was cold out or whatever, as long as it's above the 28 degrees, I believe it said, to not drive the tires on. I drove it, didn't matter. So I've got a lot of experience in the rain, cold, warm with the Sport Cup 2Rs, and I have used the PS4s on other vehicles, and you know, they do react similarly to on the Z06 cars and Z07 cars as well. I did have a Stingray before this, and I ran a 1919 setup with Goodyear Supercar 3Rs when I tracked it. I basically am using the Forgeline GA1Rs as my daily driver setup, and the Sport Cup 2Rs will be my track setup. And same thing, if I start tracking the car more frequently, I'd probably move to a 1919 setup on this one as well, just because the tires are way cheaper than replacing the 20s and 21s. But I really kind of want to talk about the drivability between the two tires for everyday use. Now, if you don't plan on tracking your vet at all, or extremely rarely, maybe once a year, you really don't need a Z07 car. I mean, if you really want the high wing or the front dive planes, you might be better off just buying a stock rear bumper, having it painted, and then put the high wing on it aftermarket wise, because you'll save yourself a ton of money. The car with the Z07 package does ride stiffer. It's got a higher spring rate. You do feel that. It doesn't bother me. I'm used to having cars with performance suspensions on them and everything that comes with them. But definitely big difference in drivability is the tires. The Sport Cup 2Rs are actually designed to be ran, I think, the 34, 35 PSI range, and that's designed to really push more of the contact patch into the road because there's not much of it. The Pilot Sport 4Ss are designed to be run in the normal 30 PSI range, like normal Stingrays or the base Z06s. It's interesting because since this is a Z07 car and it thinks it's supposed to have Sport Cup 2s on it, it does trigger a low pressure warning essentially on my app at 29 pounds. But it's fine, not worried about it. Nothing on the dash, everything's fine with that regard. Now, again, Sport Cup 2R is a race tire. I mean, it is basically everything that you would expect a race tire to be. And there's really two different types of race tires that pertains to performance handling. You have an autocross tire and what you'd have is a road race tire, and you have some hybrids that work in between them, but in reality is a autocross tire is designed to be sticky quick, because autocross runs are quick, like Dunlop Durizas or the BFG rivals, the RT series through Falcon, stuff like that. Those are autocross tires. They get greasy quickly on a road course because that's just not what they're designed for. These are a road race tire. So conversely, these tires are hard as rock when they're cold. I mean, they literally handle worse than the Pilot Sport 4S up until you get into normal temperature ranges. And obviously it excels it, very much so. So when it's at cold weather out, you gotta be careful. I mean, I had a guy pull out in front of me and I almost went to the back of him because the tire was cold. It was like 30 degrees out, 35 degrees outside, and damn near locked up the brakes. It was full ABS stop. Like, I was like, whoa. I mean, this was kind of crazy how close it was. But you have to be cognizant that these tires do not handle as good when they're cold. When it says cold on your dash, it actually is handling worse than your PS4s. Cool, it's probably about in line, and obviously when you get to normal temperatures and higher, and when they're warm and hot, that's when obviously where they shine. I haven't had these on track yet. I've just been busy, but I do plan to track the car here probably within the next 30 days. But another thing to also understand is you're going to hear a lot of Ackerman effect when you're driving this thing around at low speeds and parking lots. You're gonna hear the front tire scrub. It's very noticeable, especially when it's an asphalt surfaced parking lot at tight turning radiuses. And if you give a little bit too much gas, it'll actually will understeer just because the tire has no adhesion. It's very, very cold. So be aware that you can't just pop in your car, go drive this thing around, and hit the canyon roads when the tires are cold. Just like any other, race tire, you need to put a good, lap out, make sure the tires are normal temperature before you start getting crazy with them, or you're going to pay the price. So, the PS4S, again, is a great tire to drive regularly. I would definitely recommend this over top of the Sport Cup 2Rs, unless you're going to be tracking the car a lot. You're going to get way better life out of them, and they have better road manners. Race tires, they follow every single line on the road. You'll be essentially, you'll have to be counter steering a lot, not counter steering, but essentially when the car's going through cracks and stuff like that, you're going to feel them a lot more on the Sport Cup 2Rs than you are with the Pilot Sport 4s. Also, this car has a track alignment on it. Now, Chevrolet calls for -2 degrees front, -2 degrees rear on the Z06 cars. And then Stingrays were 3 in the front and 2.5 in the rear. So when I ran my Stingray, I ended up at -3.6 degrees of camber to get even tire wear in the front and -2.8 degrees in the rear. So I kind of offset this at the same. This has got -2.6 degrees in the front now and -2.3 degrees in the rear. And you can actually do that without having to swap the washers. So I basically wanted to figure out what would the maximum amount of camber we could get out of the front without swapping the washers, and that's where we ended up, -2.6 degrees. It is lowered about 0.6 inches on the factory coilovers. Obviously, if you've got a front lift car, you don't have that adjustment on the front, but you do on the rear. So that's really it. If you plan to not track your car probably 4 or 5 times a year, just don't even bother with either a Z07 car, which, honestly, it's easier to get a non-Z07 car right now than it is a Z07 car, and put a high wing on it. I mean, you'll save yourself, $15,000 between brakes and the body kit and everything like that, and it'll just have better road manners. It'll be softer as far as spring rates goes. You're not going to really lose any performance at all. It'll actually pick up better miles per gallon. It'll be faster without the high wing on it in general. Yeah, essentially, there you go. Kind of a overview of the life of a Pilot Sport 4S versus a Sport Cup 2R.